Hello and thank you for joining us on France 24. It's time for us to cast our collective eye on Africa. First up, the headlines. Violence continues to plague the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo following the capture of Uvira in South Kivu last week by Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. Over 200,000 people have fled their homes as the rebel group warns it could push further south. A trial hailed by international lawyers as a milestone for expanding accountability has resulted in a 30-year prison sentence for former Congolese rebel Roger Lumbala. He was sentenced for complicity in crimes against humanity committed by soldiers between 2002 and 2003 during the Second Congo War. And the West African bloc ECOWAS rejects the transition plan put forth by Guinea Bissau's new military authorities, demanding a swift return to constitutional order and threatening sanctions against those obstructing the transition process. Violence continues to plague the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo following the capture of the town of Uvira in South Kivu last week by Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. More than 200,000 people, mostly civilians, have fled, particularly from the town of Kamanyola. Some of its inhabitants have sought refuge across the border in neighboring Rwanda. Report by Juliette Montilly.
Since December 3rd, Congolese civilians have been arriving at this Rwandan transit center. Among them, Noella and her 13 children.
My daughter and I sleep here. The other children sleep over there and up there on the bed.
Originally from Kamanyola in eastern DR Congo, they fled the recent fighting between M23 rebels and the Congolese army, backed respectively by Rwanda and Burundi.
We heard the bombs getting closer. They were shooting everywhere, so we threw ourselves to the ground. We could hear the fighting. Then the bombs started dropping. Our neighbor's house was destroyed. Mine was hit too. The roof was damaged. There were fragments everywhere.
At least 200,000 people have been displaced by this new M23 offensive. More than 1,000 of them have found refuge here, just across the border.
For some time, we'd noticed many movements of soldiers around us. We could feel that something serious was coming. We waited, but on D-Day, fighting was everywhere. We really had to flee.
Used to recurring episodes of violence, Mapendo and her family would usually seek shelter in the mountains. This time, the intensity of the fighting pushed them to cross into Rwanda, where they will remain until the situation calms down.
Rwanda hosts many refugees. More than 137,000 refugees are here. Of course, when people arrive from a difficult situation, we comfort them, we transport them, we give them basic assistance.
Rwanda is accused of fueling the conflict. The United States says Kigali is violating the peace agreement signed on December 4th and pushing the region toward greater instability.
The M23 rebel group's appointed governor in South Kivu warned on Saturday that the rebels could extend their advance beyond the east of the DRC, including into Katanga province. His comments follows the capture of the key city of Uvira last week by the Rwandan-backed group. The east of the country is known to be extremely mineral rich and has been the source of decades of conflict. The governor's comments also follow a mineral deal struck between Kinshasa and Washington last week. Let's take a listen to the Congolese foreign minister.
The DRC is the country where you find the highest concentration of the most critical minerals that are necessary for our current technology. So the interest is there. It is coming from U.S. companies and other companies. There is a lot of interest, and there have been very fruitful conversations. But again, what the primacy of all of these conversations is the imperative to return to security, to return to peace. Because even if there is interest from U.S. companies or from other companies, from other countries, the precondition that for any successful investment, not just for us as Congolese, but certainly for any respectable company, is that there is a minimum of stability, of security, of peace, because they have to, set up their business in the DRC. So this is for us also our guiding principle, even when we engage in these very, dynamic and promising conversations.
To go further, I'm joined by Jervin Naidu, political analyst from Oxford Economics Africa. Jervin, Thank you for joining us on the program. We just heard the Congolese minister refer to the mineral deal between Washington and Kinshasa. How have the minerals been used as leverage in the deal negotiations, and why has it not worked?
Yeah, so as the foreign minister mentioned, the DRC has a plethora of resources. It's been used as a nugget for both the both the Rwandans, the Congolese, and the US as a incentive and bringing all the parties together to say, look, there's this great wealth. We can find some kind of peace. It's also rooted in what we consider a theory which in security, in which if you integrate your economies, the deeper your economies are integrated, the more unlikely you are to go to war. So that's the whole idea behind these resources. But unfortunately, this is not working because it's an economic deal, first and foremost, not a political one, and it's not addressing the real root causes of the conflict in the eastern DRC, of which there are reasons why the Rwandans are interested. The Congolese have their own issues, and M23 have very specific interests in protecting ethnic Tutsi interests in the Congo.
Well, we also, as I mentioned earlier, the Rwandan-backed M23 group said it could push further south in the direction of Katanga. Why is this region important to them?
Clemens is a very, very important region. It's the copper belt. The DRC is the second largest producer of copper, and most importantly, cobalt, which is a byproduct or comes out of copper. We use cobalt in the manufacturing of our batteries and a lot of technology that's important for the fourth industrial revolution. This is extremely worrying because while the Congolese government generates revenues from the east, the copper belt generates a major part of its economy, and this is extremely worrying. Though it's a bit far-fetched. I wouldn't say far-fetched, but unlikely in this incident, because Katanga is about 1,000 kilometers away from where the rebels are. It's highly fortified by private military plus the army. It's not easy to get there, but the fact that the governor in the South Kivu is saying that they might look at it, it's going to be worrying the government quite a lot.
And, well, as you've mentioned, it's very much a question of economics and resources. We know that the east of the DRC has been coveted for decades for its minerals, but does the rebel group have the resources to exploit the minerals in the areas that they have captured?
Yes, currently the M23 are trying to establish themselves not just as an occupying power, but a governing power. So in Rubaya, which is one of the largest cobalt mines, which they also control in the east, they are running the mine, they are generating revenues. The mines that they control, they are generating revenues. They are basically stealing revenues away from the Congolese government, hurting their economic position and strengthening their position in leverage. So M23 are already showing characteristics of not just an occupying force, but a governing force. So this is why the Congolese government are getting really worried and are on the back foot in terms of negotiations, particularly in the Doha process, which is between the DRC government and M23.
And the rebels have said that they are trying to establish a parallel government in the east of the DRC, where they are established. And so I'm guessing we can expect a continuous political fracture in the Democratic Republic of Congo?
Yes, 100%, Tamis. The way in which the DRC has been functioning over the last 20 years, there has been the sort of balkanization in parts of the country. You know, there are concerns amongst Congolese that the government's only concerned about Kinshasa in the south. They forget about people in the east. And the way M23 are governing, it's showing us that they have enough power. There are some rumors, and some of my sources that I talk to and our clients that are involved in the Eastern DRC, there are real concerns that the DRC will be balkanized and there'll be some kind of shadow state in which the M23 govern, independently from the Congolese government. So there are real signs, as a political analyst, I monitor trends, and some of the trends are telling us that there could be a balkanization of the Eastern DRC.
And one final question. On Saturday, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, announced the U.S. was ready to take action to ensure that the president's promises were kept regarding the deal between Washington and Kinshasa and the peace negotiations overall. What exactly could that entail?
It's a wide range of options the U.S. would have. It could be from simple intelligence sharing, to obviously a hardline invasion. I think that we think we're far away from that. I think they probably look on a side of caution, given the politics in the U.S. and Donald Trump's aversion to not wanting to get too much involved in foreign wars and conflicts directly. So we probably will see some intelligence sharing, some more weapons, because the FARDC, which is the Congolese armed forces, they are seriously tired and fatigued. They do lack technology compared to M23 and the Rwandan forces, so they would need some help on that sense. So I think if the U.S. does get involved, it's going to be more on the technical side, intelligence sharing side, and helping buff up support, because also a lot of the private mercenaries or militias, private military companies in the south are American ones, so they'll probably be giving some kind of military support, not directly, but in indirect form.
Thank you very much for your insight, Jervin Naidu, political analyst from Oxford's Economics Africa. A Paris court has sentenced former Congolese rebel leader Roger Lumbala to 30 years in prison for complicity in crimes against humanity committed by his soldiers during the Second Congo War between 2002 and 2003. Among the charges, the use of rape as a weapon of war, sexual slavery, torture, mutilation, summary executions, or the plundering of resources. Lumbala has denied the accusations and insists he was just a politician with no soldiers under his command. The 67-year-old boycotted his trial following its start in November and has been absent for most of the proceedings. Laurent Berstecher tells us more.
Back in the dock after having boycotted his own trial, Roger Lumbala was sentenced Monday to 30 years behind bars for complicity in crimes against humanity. The former warlord was found guilty of being one of the masterminds behind Operation Blank Slate, which was carried out over 20 years ago in eastern DRC. Mass rapes, slavery, torture, and extrajudicial killings. For over a month, the court listened to grueling tales of atrocities committed by Lumbala's rebel group, the RDCN, between 2002 and 2003. Since the first day of the trial, the 67-year-old has contested the legitimacy of French courts and refused to attend proceedings, instructing his lawyers to recuse themselves from the case. But that didn't stop the judge from issuing a conviction under the principle of universal jurisdiction. The verdict, which Lumbala has 10 days to appeal, was hailed as historic by several NGOs, which expressed hope it could signal the end of impunity for crimes committed in the ongoing conflict for resources in eastern DRC.
At least 37 people have been killed in flash floods which swept Morocco's Safi coastal province over the weekend. At least 70 homes and shops located in the port city were flooded and damaged following torrential rains on Sunday, with several roads to and from Safi cut off. The local authorities issued a statement on Monday saying search and rescue operations were still underway and that schools were closed. According to Morocco's weather service, more heavy rains are expected across the nation on Tuesday. The West African bloc ECOWAS rejected on Sunday the transition plan announced by Guinea Bissau's new military authorities, demanding a swift return to constitutional order. The economic community threatened sanctions against those obstructing the transition process and also mandated its chair to lead a high-level delegation to Guinea Bissau for talks with the junta. Let's take a listen.
The authority rejects the transition program as recently announced by the military leadership in Guinea-Bissau, and the authority calls for a swift restoration of constitutional order. More specifically, the authority calls for the immediate release of all political detainees in Guinea-Bissau and for the respect of the right of all political actors to participate in all political processes of Guinea-Bissau.
That's all from us for the moment. Stay tuned to France 24. We'll be right back with more news.